And leadership is first and foremost learned through experience, and then reflecting on that experience and making meaning out of that experience, and possibly new and different meaning than the one you would make if you were caught up in the speed and humdrum of everyday life. So first of all, you'd have to give students opportunity to have the experience of leading and following, so have practical elements, internship, apprenticeship, opportunities to really experience what it is like to be in a social system and trying to influence it and being influenced by it, and also giving them opportunities to reflect on those experiences, to learn something about themselves and the collectivities in which they're in. And another way is giving priority to the humanities, which are a way of gaining access to the nuances of human experience, which is, in the end, the essence of what leadership and following are made of. I think the greatest and most exciting thing that I've seen happening at this conference and in the last few years has been really sparking a conversation around what is effective pedagogy, what is effective pedagogy that develops people, what are ways in which we can maximize not just how much is learned, but also what is learned and by whom. And I think by in continuing to have the conversation about what is best learned through technology, what is best learned face to face, and then what is best learned in what kind of way, either through technology or face to face, it's very important. And I think what's also fascinating is the kind of emergence of technology in the learning sciences has also raised a big debate about what is the purpose of education. Is it just propagating knowledge, or is it actually developing the individual to be not just employable, but also a good citizen? And if a good citizen of what? Of an enterprise, of a nation state, or of a global community? First of all, despite its claims of being highly democratic, MOOC is still a relatively elitist pedagogy, not in its intent, but in its effect. We know that MOOCs work really well for a just small band of its attendees who actually tend to be very highly educated and already members of majority group who can sustain the interest and attention and leisure time that being a good MOOC learner, an independent MOOC learner needs. They also, in many ways, have brought about a conversation of learning which reduces learning to its minimum common denominator, which is the transmission of and testing of fact. So they've taken one of the definitions of learning, which we've tried to broaden and transcend in education, and actually put it at the heart of what it means to learn. And so in many ways, I think MOOC have an opportunity to consider what are the steps that they need to take to transcend the rhetoric of democratizing learning and actually really practicing that broad access that they promise. I think the thing that has most struck me at the conference is what an amazing moment this is to be a learning professional. Because I think technology has really thrown up not just small questions of methods or what works best for this course versus for this other course, but very big fundamental questions of ethics and purpose and practice, like what does it mean to learn? Who needs to learn what? Who, for example, in my field of leadership development, is what kind of leaders are we developing, and on whose behalf? And it's really tremendous because you can really feel in the conference, you can really feel the atmosphere of tremendous promise, which is sometimes almost bordering on utopia, but also the very open conversation about what are the risks. What are the risks, for example, of learning providers amassing and conserving huge amounts of data on the learners, as they're going about the inevitably messy process of making mistakes and experimenting that we know eventually leads to a smooth application of knowledge. Will these data be ever used? By whom? For what? Those are questions that we need to pay attention to if we want to continue to sustain the promise that learning is a space not just to acquire some knowledge and skills, but it's also a space to experiment and reimagine yourself. We are still in the very early stages. We are still at the stage in which we are taking what we knew worked reasonably well or was popular in a face-to-face environment and trying to translate it in a technological platform or online. We are still to see the emergence of pedagogies and learning practices that are really taking advantage of the possibilities that technology affords. When television appeared, people used to film theater shows. That's before kind of television shows were developed, were imagined, because then you can think of technology not as a medium, but I think we ought to start thinking of technology as a literary genre, and then start thinking about what kind of poetics does the genre afford. And so I think we're still to see the moments in which learning doesn't just influence technology, but technology starts influencing learning. And I think really the emergence of much sounder blended learning platform where you can do certain things through technology that then enables the face-to-face time being spent on really meaningful interactions. I think the emergence of technologies that really give people the possibility for serendipitous connection or for access to groups and bodies of knowledge and authorities that they wouldn't otherwise have, that would be really exciting.